Welcome back to Reality Asserts Itself. I'm Paul Jay. This is the Real News Network. We're continuing our discussion with Professor Aleksandr Buzgalin. Thanks for joining us again. In New York, I should say.
Yes, in New York, yes, thank you.
Professor Buzgalin teaches political economy and is director of the Center for Modern Marxist Studies at Moscow State University. Through your life, we're telling the modern history of the end of the Soviet Union and the beginnings of, I guess, a new Russia of sorts. So in 1999, Putin becomes president and begins really a new era. Putin comes from the KGB. Was he in on the, what role did he play during the arrest of Gorbachev, the rise of Yeltsin? Where is he in all this?
Oh, first of all, I am not biographer of Putin, so I will not give you something interesting. I don't have any interesting information. He was working as a specialist, let's say. I don't know how to use, what word to use in English. In Russian, we have разведчик, investigator, not spy. Then when Yeltsin came to power, he was working in the administration of St. Petersburg with one of the close friends of Yeltsin, Sobchak, not Lady Sobchak, she's daughter of Sobchak, father. Then he went back to KGB, if I'm not mistaken. I never followed to the biography of Putin, and became step by step the president, I don't know, the leader, director of KGB. Now it's a federal FSB, federal system of безопасность, security, something like that, yeah. So when he was nominated by Yeltsin to be new president, it was an interesting situation. Just a few minutes before New Year, in his speech for people, Yeltsin said that I will not be more president and I want Putin to be next president of Russia. So it was a very big sensation just before.
Why did he do it?
First of all, I will finish. So sorry, it was a big surprise for people when they were with champagne waiting when we'll be 12. And from 1st of December, we will move to the 1st of January, we received new president. Of course, it was elections, but more or less artificial elections. Why? No, first of all, because I think main force of Russian life, big capital, decided to change the model of political organization. In Yeltsin's period, we had the power of biggest bankers together with the owners of the biggest gas, oil, metal corporations. And they control political power, but it was permanent fight between these leaders of corporations. You know, it's
amongst
like
the oligarchs.
Yeah, oligarchs. Yeah, it likes in feudal epoch when barons are fighting between each other, and finally, when it's necessary to stabilize a system of accumulation of capital, they understand it's better to have one king, one Tsar, and not to have this permanent war between themselves. Yeah, they more or less divided Russia between themselves and decided
during the 90s they have this asset grab.
They had 10 years of the nearly 10 years of permanent redivision of the markets, of the influence, of the power, with criminal conflicts, with bloody victims, and with terrible disorder. But when primitive accumulation of capital is finishing, it's necessary to have stabilization of rules of the game. And it's necessary to have political order. And Putin became symbol of this new era, not creator, but symbol. I don't know, top representative, but not master of the game. It's a big mistake. Everybody thinks that real power in Russia belongs to Putin. No. Real power still belongs to the big capital, together with top bureaucrats who became more powerful than before. But this is one new nomenclature, one new strata. And this strata is real master of Russian economy, Russian social and political life. And Putin is symbol.
Symbol or more the conductor of a orchestra of
I
power,
think not conductor.
not even conductor.
Not even conductor. He personally can change something a little bit in the distribution of power, of distribution of, I don't know, statuses, help or not to help to redistribute a little bit wealth, but not too much.
But there's a general impression, I've heard it from people who live in Russia too, that nothing big goes on without the president's office having a hand.
Oh, first of all, not Putin, but administration of president. This is big difference. Administration of president is not simply group of bureaucrats. This is people who has very strong connections with business, with executive power in regions and so on. So really there is more or less informal, without exact borders, strata, again, social strata with class interest to keep this semi-bureaucratic, semi-capitalist system with a lot of elements of feudalism to keep this system.
So Putin is formally elected in August of '99, but he's more or less already been handed over to him. Where are you, and how does life change? I mean, is there now more structure? There's laws, there's a system?
Really, we didn't have so big changes. And for majority of Russians, nearly nothing changed. More stabilization, more, little less criminal activity. The only real change which we had in from 2000 till 2007, even from 1998 till 2007, it was growth of economy. And the main impulse for this growth was not Putin's presidency, but when Primakov became prime minister after crisis in 1998. And Primakov was a supporter of, let's say, Chinese model. He started state regulations, he started support of internal industry, regulation of financial system, and so on. And he gave first impulse for the growth of economy after 7 years of crisis. And it was also not bad to keep this, to create this new economic policy in the period when growth of prices on oil started. And from $25 per gallon, I'm sorry, I'm tired a little bit. In 1990s, price of oil was 25 approximately dollars per gallon. In 2001, 3, 4, it was up to 150. So it was enormous growth, 6 times. And because of that, we received a lot of incomes. And part of these incomes were used for increasing of living standards of Russians. Mainly it was used in order to transfer millionaires towards billionaires. And it was a successful result because we had the second or third place in the world as far as number of billionaires is concerned. We are still among champions, so we are very good in this competition. And for Russians, it was growth of incomes, not very rapid with growth of social differentiation, but still it was positive trend based on this conjuncture.
And what is the response of the oligarchs to this strengthening of a state, central state? Some seem to benefit, and a few even went to jail. So
it's like in a feudal country where from feudal barons you are coming to one king. Some barons will have even more power and more influence and more property, but some will be killed or in prison. It was in France, it was everywhere, yeah? The same in Russia in 21st century. We have many elements of late feudalism in our country, unfortunately. So, and now state express interests of the class. But if one baron will decide to take too much for himself, or to destroy this power, or to change a little bit this power, he will be in the prison. The story of Khodorkovsky is relatively simple. He decided not to follow to the common rules, He proposed socialization of economy. He said that too big social differentiation and absence of industrial policy is not good for the economy in general and for accumulation of capital, by the way. And if we Russia want to have growth, if we want to have new quality of development, it's necessary to change economic model. But it was not profitable for continuation of the policy which was before and which is now. And he went to prison because he didn't pay taxes. But in Russia, in 90s, nobody paid taxes, so everybody could be in prison. It was enormous.
So if the state wants somebody in prison,
yeah,
there's
and
always
it
a
was
ready
necessary
reason to
show,
do it.
yeah, that if you will not follow to our common rules, you will be in prison.
So he actually wanted a somewhat more social democratic form of capitalism?
A little bit, yes. He was not the hero of socialist labor, of course, but yeah, it was a relatively more progressive model. And he decided to participate in very active form in politics.
Now, you're trying to keep the left alive during all of this. You're still teaching at the university. What's happening to the left during the rise of the creation of a stronger central state and Putin and so on?
Again, situation is complex and contradictory. We have in parliament Communist Party of Russian Federation, which is going down. They had 30, even more % of the seats. Now they have 15.
And how left is that party? Because it has leftist things, but it also has a pretty vile nationalist streak.
So Communist Party of Russian Federation is a strange organization. They have economic and social program very similar with Die Linke in Germany, for example. Not bad, left social democratic program. But internal organization is very bureaucratic and conservative. Ideology in general is also a mixture of some communist slogans with slogans of Orthodox Church and conservative slogans. Plus nostalgia, Soviet Union is a symbol of the prosperity and Stalin is symbol of good life in Soviet period. So in this case, this is not very progressive at all. But inside Communist Party, there are a lot of interesting, good people who simply doesn't have a place to act because this is the only official left organization with all negative features. We have small communist organizations, left organizations. Some of them are not bad, so-called United Communist Party. It's unification of people who were expelled from Communist Party of Russian Federation because they were real communists, I can say, yeah. And we work together with this political group, very close cooperation. But as I said, the alternatives mainly is movement of people who wants to develop left Marxist theory, who wants to teach, who wants to make real propaganda of left ideas. And we have some positive results. We have a weekly radio program, open air, 40 minutes in one of the federal radios, Komsomolskaya Pravda, one of the most popular radio in Russia. We have access to central TV at least 1-2 times per month, our colleagues, because we are top intellectuals. It's not self-advertising, it's true. We have opportunity to participate in talk show, even in First Channel, in very popular talk shows. We had 200th anniversary of Marx. We had 6 talk shows where we participated, devoted to this anniversary in different channels. We have 2 journals, popular journals, many different websites, not alternatives. Alternatives have 2, but it's good work, I think.
The West loved Yeltsin, and they grew to hate Putin. Why?
This is a big story. To be brief, in Russia, we had, during last 10 years, permanent stagnation or before even crisis of economy. No improvements. And at the same time, we had the growth of concentration of national capital. And this huge capital decided to play a role in the world market. And if capital wants to take a piece of world market, it's necessary to have strong state behind. So first attempt to come to the world market led to the bad result. Russian capital decided to buy part of the Western corporations, and Western corporations said, no, 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 never. The Russians said, we will pay a good price. No, never. It's our business. Go out. After that, we received the impulse for growth of military-industrial complex. And if we have military-industrial complex, it's necessary to use this complex for something. Plus, it was a real attack on national pride of Russians during all this period of Yeltsin period, and after that, we were a country which lost everything. Respect, national sovereignty. We were under the control of United States. We had westernization of cultural life, and it was very unpleasant, terrible for us. And when Putin made first really decisive step and said Crimea will be part of Russia, he received huge popularity. Crimea is a special question. We discussed in your program not one time this question, but he received yes from people.
But the Americans and many of the Europeans already hated Putin before Crimea.
Not too much. Really, the crisis, the problems started after 2008, 10. Before Putin was good friend, it was partnership with NATO, it was no problem in early period, or nearly no problem.
Well, Hillary was going to reboot the relationship because it was problematic. Putin was out, the vilification was already in the works.
Yeah, but Putin was step by step was trying to create a stronger Russian state.
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is part of creating the stronger Russian state is that these resources are going to be Russian oligarchs, not American oligarchs.
Yeah, it's true.
And finance too, like Western finance couldn't get their hooks in the way
also
they.
True. Yeah.
And the whole point of breaking up the Soviet Union, from a Western point of view, was that Western capital should have a free-for-all.
Yeah, but here there is even it's an absolutely visible reason for this. But there is another reason. Power in Russia partly is dependent from the people. Every state, even if it is a marionette of the capital, is dependent from the public opinion, from the public feelings. They must have balance. And for Russians, necessity to have self-respect became extremely important after 20 years of permanent crisis.
And for Putin...
It was necessary to give response to this necessity.
Okay, we're going to pick this up in the next segment because this opens up the whole question of Putin and brings us kind of more up to date because we only have so much time today and clearly we could do another 35 episodes. So please join us for the next segment of Reality Asserts Itself with Aleksandr Buzgalin on the Real News Network.